So I guess you heard the news. I guess you heard the news that they've postponed the basketball championship game. Oh, yeah. You see, they needed to give Kentucky more time to overcome their fear of the Jayhawks. I'm not really clear exactly what Bob said last week, but many of you came to the conclusion that I was either in North Carolina or I was at the North Carolina game. Sorry to disappoint you, I was right here. But I was watching the game. And even though I am a North Carolina alum, and I did actually root for them in the game last week, but I am all about the Jayhawks today. All about the Jayhawks. So I'm wearing a cross today. And of course I would, because we're speaking about the crucifixion today. Now some of you are thinking, wait a minute, this must be an April Fool's joke. It's Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday's the day when we celebrate Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem, and everybody lays down their cloaks and their rags on the path before him and waves wonderful palm fronds, and he marches in on this wonderful donkey, and we yell, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And you know, that's all about Palm Sunday, right? Yeah, well, and that's true enough. But if you've been with us for the past several weeks, you know that we're in a series called What Do You Really Believe? And in this series, we are tackling the big spiritual teachings. Spiritual teachings like, what do you really believe about grace? What do you really believe about the Bible, about original sin, about heaven, hell, what happens when you die? So we've been tackling all of the big spiritual concepts and teachings. We could hardly do such a series without speaking about the crucifixion. Because when you get clear on what you really believe, when you get clear on what these teachings mean for you and your life, then you can live in integrity with them. And until you're clear on what your beliefs are, you can't fully live in integrity with them. So today, we're speaking about what do you believe about the crucifixion. And as I said, I'm wearing a cross today, and I have to make a confession to you. I don't wear crosses very much anymore. This one was given to me by a family in our congregation, and it's very special to me because it was. But something seems to be happening to Christianity. And maybe it's just my perspective. But it seems to me that there is a particularly vocal group who have begun to represent Christianity for everyone else. And I believe that Christianity is big enough to have many voices. But there's a particular group whose voice is so loud today that I'm afraid that if I wear my cross for Christianity as I see it, I'll automatically be attached to that loud voice that's out there in the world. Does anybody else know what I'm talking about? And this is said without casting aspersions on anyone, because there is truth in every way of finding Christianity. But you know, there's this one voice which almost feels like, I don't know, it's spoken. When a person says, I'm a Christian, sometimes it's spoken like it's a person who's a member of an exclusive club. And that because they're a member of that exclusive club, that exclusive branch of Christianity, then they're somehow a little better than the rest. And this particular voice believes things that I don't necessarily believe in myself. This particular voice believes in things like excluding homosexuals from ordination as a minister, or from marriage, or even from heaven. This particular voice sometimes equates Christianity and politics. Seems to me the two are separate, but it sometimes equates them. This particular voice seems to even maybe identify with a particular candidate or not. And so what I find is that I want my voice, and I don't want people to make an assumption about what I believe because I wear a cross. And I didn't always used to feel that way. I felt like there was plenty of room to wear my cross and have it mean what it means to me. So today, we're talking about the crucifixion. And as we have with each week of our series, we're going to speak about alternative interpretations of it. Because my goal in all of this is that you get clear on what you believe. That you get clear on what feels right to the intuitive presence of the Christ in you. And you will know. You will know. So we should start with what is sometimes considered a traditional, maybe an evangelical view of the crucifixion. And that view begins with a premise that humankind has a particular sin attached to it, that we are destined to sin, and therefore we need saving and we need atonement. And through Jesus' human death on the cross, his bodily, physical death on the cross, that atoned for any human sin, past, present, or future. And so that's the logic behind the very importance of the cross, the very importance of the crucifixion is that it represents salvation through the literal shedding of Jesus' blood. And that is a way of regarding the crucifixion. And I'd like to present to you some other ways of looking at it today. So unity, as we spoke about a few weeks ago, unity takes the Bible and sees it as a journey. You know, it's a journey of our consciousness, right? Your and my consciousness and the consciousness of all of humanity. And in this journey, you can find yourself in every story of the Bible if you look at it metaphysically. And so this crucifixion we can look at as an important part of your and my journey in life. Some of you today are in a place that feels like a crucifixion. I know it. People left the first service and told me that's right where they were. See, the crucifixion in unity, as we interpret it, is crossing out of old ways of thinking and being so that we can make space for a greater knowing of God and oneness in us. And you can look back in Jesus' day and say, well, it was a crossing out of that old legalistic, pharisaical view of spiritual law, because back in that day, there were those who were adhered absolutely to the letter of the law, you know, who believed absolutely you could not lift a finger of any sort on the Sabbath, even if it meant to heal. You know, there was this legalistic mindset and this judgmental mindset, and it was, you know, it came about for many important reasons, but nevertheless, Jesus came, and as he embodied his Christ, he helped people to let go of that and to make space for a God of love, for the spirit of the law, moving from the letter of the law to the spirit of the law. So it was a shedding of that. So you could say the crucifixion represented a crossing out of an old consciousness. And you can also say that it's that way for you and me, that as we let go of beliefs that are restricting us from living our ultimate freedom, we go through a kind of a crucifixion experience. You know, anytime we judge another person or ourselves, we are creating this sense of separation. And ultimately, we want to be in the place of union and oneness. So as we're making this journey from separation to oneness, we're about letting go of what doesn't serve us, letting go of what makes us feel separate from God. Now, as I tell it, you know, it sounds all very clinical. It's like, well, we're just going to write out a denial or something and write out, I let go of this belief and now I claim this one. And it's all going to be very easy, just like a surgeon, you know, doing surgery. We're just going to cut this out and add this and we're going to all be healed and well. And actually, it is rather like a surgery, but it's not so clinical and sterile. I mean, you could say that a crucifixion is kind of like a heart transplant. On the one hand, you could say it's clinical and sterile, and that the doctor simply says, well, we will remove the non-functioning heart, and we will place the newly functioning, healthy heart into the body cavity. Then we will reaffix all of the arteries, veins, so forth, stitch the person up, and they'll recover. Any of you here ever been through a surgery? It hurts. It hurts. The recovery especially hurts like hell. And that's the way that the crucifixion can be too. It is very much like taking out a broken heart that isn't functioning right. Taking out a broken heart that keeps you from knowing that you are love and always have been love. taking out this broken heart that's somehow twisted in some way, and ridding yourself of this heart and making space for a new heart, a heart that lets you know that you are one with God, that you are and always have been loved, you are and always have been enough. Whatever the old beliefs are of separation that go with the old heart, then you make space for the new heart. But the crucifixion experiences of our lives, they hurt like hell too, don't they? See, a crucifixion can happen with any major change in your life. Anytime you are ready to take on a new consciousness, and sometimes you don't even think you're ready, but before you know it, you're in the middle of that crucifixion experience. And so I'll share with you one of my own. I know a thing or two about the crucifixion, not just from reading about it, but I know a thing or two. You know, let me read to you how it is that it's recorded in the book of Matthew. The writer says, he's describing the moment of the crucifixion, says, at that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rocks were split. Has your life ever felt like it was shaking? He goes on to say, or the writer goes on to say, the tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. In other words, all of humanity did shift and change in that moment. And the metaphysical interpretation for you and me is that our lives, just like that, have an earthquake, a shaking. It takes a lot to shake up those old crystallized beliefs. And so the particular crucifixion story that I remember from my life is one that it's really too much to share the details with you. But I will tell you what my experience was. You see, in the midst of this experience, I was in so much pain. It was emotional pain. But the emotional pain was so great that I was in physical pain too. I hurt from the inside out. And the most difficult part was that I couldn't find God in it. Here I was in this lonely, frightening experience, and I couldn't find God. And I was praying, and my head knew God was there somewhere, but I couldn't hear God. I couldn't feel God. Talk about separation. And somehow in the midst of it, when it seemed like the light would not come, I came to a new knowing. And this profound knowing overcame me, and it said to me, in essence, Patricia, you don't have to sacrifice anymore. You do not have to suffer anymore. You see, what I realized is that I held this belief deep down within that I had to suffer, that I was somehow atoning for some sin that I or the world had committed. I wasn't quite sure what that was, but there was within me this deep belief that I had to suffer somehow in order to be worthy. And through this experience, I was given a new heart that said, let go of that old belief, let go of that old heart. Take this new heart in and know that you never have to suffer, that you do not have to sacrifice, that you cannot earn my love because my love is. Now, the way that this also relates to a surgical transplant is that, sometimes the body will reject the organ. And there have been times when I've tried to reject this new heart, this new belief. And it still comes up still today that I'll try to reject that belief. But that's how it is. The crucifixion is not a one-time event. It's a continual process in our life as we let go of the stuff, whatever the stuff is, that we have created to make us feel separate from God, separate from the Christ in us. Friday night, Brian and I went to the KC Rep performance of The Whipping Man. It is a very powerful, powerful play. Only 3 actors. And it's about Jewish slavery at the time of the Civil War. And it takes place right after the Civil War has ended. And one of the Jewish slaves speaks a lot about the Jewish plight and the Jewish flight from slavery in Egypt under Pharaoh's rule, and as they get free. And so, that's a very important part of the Jewish story, and it's a very important part of our story, too. It's part of our heritage as well. And so he speaks about slavery, and there's one moment, and I'm not going to give away the plot here, but there's one moment where he talks about slavery, and he says, you don't have to be in shackles to be enslaved. And with all due respect to those who literally experienced slavery or are even today, there's another kind of slavery. And you and I can be enslaved. We can be enslaved. And he goes on in the play, he uses alcohol as an example and says alcohol can enslave you. You can feel enslaved to a relationship. You can feel enslaved to a job. You can feel enslaved to a running belief that you can't let go of. What do you feel enslaved to? What have you felt enslaved to? You see, the crucifixion is an opportunity for you to shake away, like an earthquake, shake away that old way of thinking, whatever that is, that old slavery. Because on the other side, there's a couple of things to know about the crucifixion. And one of the things to know about the crucifixion is that the resurrection always follows it. Easter Sunday's coming. I promise we're going to get to the good stuff. I promise we will. Hang on till next week. But when you're in the middle of it like I was, it seemed I didn't know when it was going to come. I didn't know when I was going to hear God's voice again. Some of you may be in that place today, and my message to you is, well, you know what? I promise you, the resurrection will come. The other thing to know about the crucifixion is that the way to move through it is with surrender. You'll remember these other words, I'm sure, in another account of the crucifixion, this one from the book of Luke. It sounds similar at the beginning. It says, it was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land. And that's how it is when you're in the crucifixion. Darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, while the sun's light failed. And the curtain of the temple was torn into. And then Jesus, crying in a loud voice, said, into thy hands I commend my spirit. Speaking to God, he is. Into thy hands I commend my spirit. And that is the ultimate act of surrender. The ultimate act of surrender that says, even into this pain. Now, there are those who would argue, and I might be among them, I don't know if Jesus felt physical pain. I have no idea, but I know he was in some kind of pain. I believe that. And so, in the midst of this earth-shaking, curtain-tearing experience, he surrenders. Sometimes, in fact, often, that is the only thing we can do, and it's the only way through, is to just surrender. Let go, let God. Let go, let God is not a trite expression. It is, I know sometimes you'll hear somebody say, oh, well, let go, let God, as if they are dismissing something. That is powerful. It is perhaps the most powerful action you can take, to let go. Really let go of the control you thought you had, but you really never had. You see, we think we have control, but we don't. We've never had control. Surrender is a great act of faith and strength, and that's how you move through the crucifixion. Eric Butterworth, in his book, Discover the Power Within You, which we've been using throughout our series here, he says, the unfortunate thing about the Gospels is that the writers gave too much emphasis to the most impressive events. Just like today, the most sensational things make it to the news, right? So the crucifixion and the events leading up to it are set forth in complete detail. It is almost as the life of Abraham Lincoln might be if we were given nothing of his boyhood and young manhood, very little of his work in the White House, and every detail of his assassination. How easy it is to forget that it was Jesus. Now I want you to hear this. How easy it is to forget that it was Jesus-inspired life and not his agonized death that was and is the keynote of Christianity. That it was Jesus-inspired life and not his agonized death that was and is the keynote of Christianity. And not everyone who calls themselves Christian would agree with that. But I invite you into the knowing that Jesus' teachings are infinite. That those teachings live on his life as we strive to live like him. That's where the salvation comes. As we moment to moment make decisions in accordance with what we believe to be his teachings, that's where if you need salvation, that's where the path is laid before you. And so I've been thinking this week. I ran across a blog that was reacting to someone's using the term Christian in an exclusive way, like it was an exclusive club of some sort. And the person wrote in a very temperate manner, was not angry, but simply said, we need to have a dialogue about what it means to be Christian. And what I would say to that is, Christianity has more than one voice. Christianity, as I've come to know it, has space for lots of voices. Truth in lots of ways of expressing Christianity. One person's way may not be my way. So you could ask the question, are we Christians? Some people ask that question here in Unity. We don't have the cross behind us. My answer is absolutely we are Christian. That is my answer. You have to find your own answer in there. Am I Christian the way that particularly vocal Christian voice is? I don't think I'm Christian in that way. But I am Christian in another way. You see, we in Unity teach about that voice of the Christ in you. That voice of wisdom and love in you, that is the Christ that Jesus was. That's Christianity. And I don't believe that Jesus only saw things one way. The Jesus of my knowing, the Jesus that I used to feel proud to wear the cross from, was about rising above the crucifixion, was about teaching how we can move through those crucifixions in our life. That Jesus bigger than any one particular voice. And so it's up to you to find your place in it. It's up to you to put a name on it if you need to put a name on it. I think Christianity is, well, you know, I think it's bigger than just one voice. I think it's bigger than some of the simple questions we place to it. So I'm wearing a cross today, and I'm happy and proud to do so. For me, it represents overcomings that I've made in my life and overcomings that you've made in your life. And I want to tell you something special about this particular cross that you can't really see where you are. It's actually two charms. One is a gold cross, and underneath it is a silver charm that says, let go and let God. Let go and let God. You see, God dwells in you and all around you. There is no limit to this infinite God. And when you let go into that infinite God, all things are possible. Even if you're in the midst of a crucifixion experience, even if you feel one coming on, even if you're at a place where you say, I'm ready to make a shift, okay, God, bring it on. You let go, you let God, and therein lies the faith. Therein lies the power. So I invite you to help me close this lesson today by speaking with me. I let go and I let God. Together, I let go, and I let God. Now I invite you to allow to come into your awareness a particular circumstance that you are ready to release, a particular way of thinking that you are ready to let go of, something that has stood in your way, some boulder that has stood in your way and kept you from receiving that heart of love that is yours. And just imagine that you are somehow holding that right before you, this obstacle. And now I want you to speak again, I let go and I let God. And see this obstacle begin to dissolve. Please speak with me. I let go, I let God. Together, I let go and I let God. And so my prayer, dear God, is that in this moment, in this space of collective consciousness, as we come here together, knowing the power and the aliveness of the Christ, in this space right here and now, we do let go. We do let God. We surrender. We let go of the control and we claim the God, the Christ of our being. And so it is. It is done. Into your hands we commend our spirits. Amen.